Today, I watched the debate between Mufti Yasir Nadeem al-Wajidi and Awais Iqbal on the existence of God. Going into the discussion, I expected a serious exchange about whether a creator exists, and to some extent, that's exactly what I got. But by the end, I found myself asking a very different question. Why do so many debates between Muslim scholars and atheists spend almost all of their time trying to prove the existence of a generic creator, while barely discussing the actual truth claims of Islam? Let me explain. The debate began with both speakers clarifying their positions. Awais explained that he views all religions as human-made, and that his criticism is not directed only at Islam, but at religion generally. Mufti Yasir, on the other hand, wanted to focus on the discussion entirely on one question: does a creator exist? From there, the debate settled into familiar philosophical territory. Awais repeatedly argued that we simply do not have sufficient evidence to conclude that a creator exists. He emphasized that the burden of proof lies with the person making the positive claim. He also pointed out that saying, quote, "we don't know what happened before the Big Bang" is not the same as saying, quote, "therefore God exists." Mufti Yasir responded by arguing that atheism itself cannot simply claim neutrality. He discussed common sense, burden of proof, infinite regress, consciousness, immaterial existence, and the idea of a timeless, spaceless creator who exists outside the universe. He argued that asking where such a creator exists misunderstands the concept of a being that created space and time themselves. Throughout the debate, both participants repeatedly returned to questions about definitions, evidence, consciousness, cosmology, and what counts as a satisfactory explanation for reality. Whether you think either side won depends largely on which philosophical assumptions you already accept. Personally, I remain unconvinced by contingency arguments and similar philosophical approaches. They rely on premises that I don't think have been established beyond reasonable doubt. But that isn't actually what interested me most about this debate. What interested me was the pattern. Over the past several weeks, I watched numerous debates involving Muslim scholars and atheists. Mufti Yasir debates Awais Iqbal about God's existence. Shumail Nadwi debates Javed Akhtar about God's existence. Muhammad Ali Mirza has said he prefers debating atheists about God's existence. Many online Muslim apologists spend enormous amounts of time discussing contingency arguments, necessary beings, consciousness, objective morality, and similar philosophical topics. And after watching all these discussions, I can't help but ask a simple question. Where did Islam go? Think about it. Suppose, just for the sake of argument, that Mufti Yasir completely succeeded. Suppose he convinced me that there is a timeless, spaceless creator of the universe. Now what? Would I suddenly become a Muslim? Not even close. At most, I might become some kind of deist. I might conclude that a creator exists. But almost the entire case for Islam would still remain to be made. Why should I think that this creator is Allah? Why should I think that this creator communicates through prophets? Why Muhammad instead of someone else? Why should I trust the Quran? Why should I believe the miracle claims? Why should I accept angels, revelation, jinn, resurrection, and all the other distinctive claims of Islam? None of those questions are answered simply by arguing that some creator exists. This reminds me of an analogy. Imagine someone spends 2 hours convincing you that shelter is important. Eventually you agree. Fine, shelter is important. Then they immediately say, "Great, buy this house." Naturally, your next response would be, "Wait a second, tell me about this house. Is it safe? Is it well built? Does it have serious problems? Is it worth buying?" That's exactly how I feel watching many of these debates. Even if someone can convince me tomorrow that a creator exists, my very next question wouldn't be, "Where do I pray?" It would be, "Why should I believe Muhammad represents that creator?" Because that's where Islam actually begins. The existence of a creator is only the foundation. Everything that makes Islam uniquely Islam comes afterward. This is why I find these debates somewhat unsatisfying. I'm not saying the existence of God is an unimportant question. Of course it is. It's one of the biggest philosophical questions humanity has ever asked. But it isn't the main disagreement I have with Islam. My main disagreement concerns Muhammad himself. If Muhammad claimed to be the final messenger of a perfect God, then surely the most important questions are these. What did Muhammad teach? How did he live? What moral example did he set? How should we evaluate the difficult episodes recorded in the Islamic sources? Those are concrete historical questions. Those are the questions that actually distinguish Islam from generic deism. Instead, I often find discussions getting stuck in abstract philosophy, necessary beings, infinite regress, timeless existence, consciousness, ontological arguments, contingency. Interesting topics? Absolutely. But even if every one of those arguments succeeded, they would still leave the vast majority of Islam untouched. Another reason I find this frustrating is that the Quran itself doesn't primarily argue the way many modern apologists do. The Quran repeatedly points toward the natural world, the heavens, the earth, animals, rain, and human creation as signs of a creator. It appeals to what appears to be design in nature. Ironically, I actually think that argument would have been far more persuasive before modern biology, evolutionary biology. Today, however, we have a scientific framework that explains why living organisms appear designed through natural processes like evolution by natural selection. Whether one ultimately believes God guided that process or not, the intellectual landscape has changed dramatically since the 7th century. For me, evolution doesn't simply raise abstract philosophical questions about God. It challenges one of Islam's central historical narratives about human origins. That's the kind of discussion I would much rather see because it deals directly with Islam rather than with generic philosophy. At the end of the day, this debate left me thinking less about whether a creator exists and more about the direction modern Islamic apologetics has taken. If someone proved beyond any reasonable doubt that some creator exists tomorrow, I still wouldn't know whether Islam is true. I'd still need reasons to believe Muhammad really spoke for that creator. I'd still need reasons to believe the Quran is divine. I'd still need reasons to accept Islam's historical and moral claims. So my question to Muslim scholars is this. Why do so many debates stop after trying to establish a generic creator? Why not spend more time defending the specific historical and moral claims that actually make Islam what it is? Because from my perspective, that's where the real conversation begins.